You know, it seems hard to believe that we could say that women who are the victims of sexism and who are oppressed by sexism could help perpetuate it or help build sexism. But if you think about what happens, that, you know, we get socialized and taught to wear certain things to conform to a certain body style, that if we're fat, that's a problem. If we have a big nose, it's a problem. If we have big feet, it's a problem, whatever. You know, that we got to do and be certain things in order to find a guy, to be marriageable. And women, sometimes they're as bad as anybody else at saying, you know, how come you dress that way? How come you don't wear heels? I mean, how come you don't wear a skirt? You know, I've heard that a lot. You know, I don't like to wear skirts, but I hear, you must have bad legs. That's why you don't wear them, right? And the fact is, I don't like them. That's why I don't wear them. And for a lot of women, you know, they sort of encourage those kinds of ideas of being a certain thing, being like Barbie. And the other is that, you know, sometimes our families, including women in our families, help build our passivity in terms of fighting back and learning how to, you know, make this a better world. I had a friend who was from a society that was pretty chauvinist, pretty sexist. She joined the party and it made it really hard, even though she wanted to fight and change a lot of things and was active in things in her kids' school. But her family, you know, made it pretty clear that she had things she had to do in terms of childcare and stuff for her husband and stuff for her in-laws, and that's what had to come first. And it was very hard for her to deal with that and to become an organizer. And I think that's probably true of lots and lots of women.
Don't you think culture has a lot to do with it? Like I work in a high school, and it just, you see these young women and they just succumb to this bombardment that's on the videos, these rap videos, that these tight pants and chest hanging all out, that's what they want to look like. And it's so demeaning. And I think the media and culture has a lot to do with it. And,
yeah, and I think that, like, when
no, take over.
Right. But it's like, you know, like sometimes for these talk shows, you know, they be the 13, 14, 15-year-old girls acting like they want to do things that the 20-year-olds do. And then by the time they get 20, you know, 30, they're old maid, you know, and then, you know, then you have the ones that's 50 trying to return to their 20s. So it's like kind of backwards, you know?
I remember going to a wedding recently, and it was a Jamaican wedding, and you know, just being a party member, I kind of noticed certain things, and the women were all hanging out in the kitchen doing all the cooking, all these Caribbean women, and the men were all hanging out like on the porch drinking beer and stuff like that, which was fine for me because I hung out in the kitchen. That's where all the food was, so that was fine. But one of the questions I often have is how will the working class and the party in specific deal with cultures where it is accepted? I mean, it's accepted here too, that's true, but there are other cultures where women are beaten or killed if they do things like try to get divorced and things like that. And how will the party deal with that? I mean, on the one hand, we don't want to come in and just dominate people's culture. On the other hand, there are things that we feel that women should be able to experience and men experience that certain cultures seem to hold them back from experiencing. So that's a tough question.
Anybody want to try that one?
That whether you're talking about a so-called other culture, or whether you're talking about anybody who internalizes a certain amount of the ideology of capitalism and of sexism, I think the main point is to say you can't just go and saying you're acting wrong, or, you know, what you're doing is wrong. That's not going to change anybody, but rather to take an approach of patient struggle. I mean, I was thinking particularly of the ideas that women have about their own bodies, which is obviously central to the kind of sexism she was talking about. People don't get rid of those ideas by being told that they're wrong. That's kind of a very long-term struggle, and maybe even a struggle that we won't entirely win with a particular individual, you know, in that person's lifetime. But nevertheless, we should make a struggle, but a comradely struggle, a patient struggle, to try to, for all of us to change and change our ideas.
Well, I think that sexism works a lot like racism. I think if women are won to the idea that they have to play that role that is ordained by society, then they'll play that role. They'll accept the lower wages, they'll accept the second-class citizenship, just like racism has won a lot of workers to believe that it's okay for them to make $6.50 an hour or if they can get $12 an hour, they're living on cloud 9.
And I also think we're going to have to give a lot of thought to how we're raising new generations, and because, you know, really that's where sexism is going to become extinct, is in new generations. I mean, I don't think we're going to totally wipe it out of ourselves. It's too inbred.
Well, I remember a story. I work in this high school now, and I remember when I was in college, this student, a male friend of mine, came up, and I was all flustered about something, and you know, a critique, I guess, that I thought the professor didn't pay enough weight to what I was saying. And so he basically told me then that women don't demand enough, and I really took that to heart. And working in this high school, I see it every day that, you know, young men do so much inappropriate things and say inappropriate things to female students, and none of them say anything about it. So I think it's part of like them accepting this stuff. But this one day, this young woman, she was a senior, she brought in a pair of blue jeans, and she had everybody sign them. So this young man signed something, and it was totally inappropriate. And she called him on it. She said, look, what gives you the right to think you could write something like that on my jeans? And I think young women have to do more of that. We have to demand more respect.